Welcome back to day 311 at GGY, our roundtable discussion. We're on a marathon session. We just finished with Kusum, and we have Chathuranga Abesinghe joining us, Executive Committee member of the NPP, a very confident Chathuranga, just after your final rally, right?
Yeah, we just finished.
Right. So we won't go through the preamble because I think we went through all of that with Kusum earlier. We have Lulu as well. We have Auntie Maubrey. We have Chris and the others here. So basically, Chathuranga, what we want to do is put to you, give you the opportunity to make a final pitch about the NPP to the people. Right. Maybe correct a lot of the issues that that are there. A lot of the narratives that have been created. There's a lot of fear mongering going on with the NPP, less so with the SJB.
Yeah.
Right. SJB, I think the lines of attack are slightly different to the lines of attack with the NPP.
Yeah.
So, to start off with, well, I'll tell you what I told Kusum as well. Yeah. We ran both the manifestos through like an AI engine, and we said to find commonality, and it turned out like almost like 88% common, right? So really, this fight that you guys are having is over 12%, right? Like. But key areas like social protection on the economy, central bank, various other things. So what the NPP represents really is like structural change.
Yeah. So basically, why we created NPP is because nothing is happening.
Yeah.
So the policies that been put out by SJB and UNP is out of the old political culture. It's not going to happen. So that's simple. So policies people can put forward. What we are bringing in is a change in terms of the political culture itself. How you govern, how you are represented by the people, how do you keep that, reduce that gap between a politician and a person, and how do you make collective decisions, how do you become collectively responsible and accountable. So the issues that are pertaining to Sri Lanka, what Sri Lanka is now, is due to various reasons in terms of bad economic decisions, lack of governance, not having rule of law, politicians are above public interest. So the alternative built by NPP is to counter that. So obviously there's a huge gap between SJB and us in terms of what we are and who we are, right? From ideology perspective, we are left-oriented.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And from a cultural perspective, we are absolutely different from SJB, which will allow us to execute things much efficiently because we build on policy, all of us talk the same language, we are agreed to one common program, we don't have any personal interest in coming to politics, we are driven by a public fund, like, collective effort, so we don't necessarily bring our own money and campaign. So we don't have that interest piece, which is a conflict in other parties. Now if you take SJB, I have to take this because I have to explain.
Yeah.
So they grab various people with different interests just to obtain power. So what's going to happen is what it happened in 2015.
Yeah.
Right? There's a huge conflict of interest of ideologies. And there's a huge conflict of interest of personal interest. Who's who? I mean, for us, whether Chathuranga handles Kotte or Gampaha, whether Chathuranga does not handle electorate is not a big deal for us. Because we are doing politics as a team based on our merit. What is the role given by the team? I do that. Right? If tomorrow party decides Chathuranga, now Kotte is sorted, right? This is the role that you want to play. I would be open to look at it because we never came to politics to go to parliament, take a ministry, be powerful among everyone. So that is the only reason that I would say any policy that's been put forward by us is very likely to get implemented.
So basically the NPP represents a sort of a more radical change than the SJB, which is seen more as like sort of pragmatic sort of change, right?
I don't...
Because what y'all are describing is like sort of breaking sort of elite power and, you know, like breaking the captured state. That's all. That's
it's like this. No? So I think the two words you used, whether we would do a radical change. Now in Sri Lanka, implementing...
But see, whether... It's not really my view.
I
mean, in the sense, I'm paraphrasing the views that are expressed by the people.
So I'm going to explain. So if people think NPP...
They are viewed as radical, right?
So first, bringing NPP to power is absolutely radical. Yeah. Because it's a left-oriented party, not has been in power, the newbies in the ground, not a lot of experience of proper governance, right? So obviously it's a chance people take, right? And it's a radical issue. And secondly, in Sri Lanka, if we implement law from day one, it's radical. It's absolutely radical. Right?
Yeah.
Number two, if we don't associate ourselves with exorbitant benefits that's been given to politicians from day one, if Anura and Harini travels in one car, that's absolutely radical. Right? And if we, for example, I handle the industries. All these years, the industrialists, as associations, they bring documents to the ministry to get things done. And from 21st of September, if we are going with proposals to the industry, that's absolutely radical. Right? Because we want to grow this country. Our whole intention of doing politics is making wealth and ensuring that wealth is benefiting all in the country. So in that sense, whatever that has not happened thus far and what's going to happen from 21st is obviously going to be radical. But towards a better country, towards a better growth, towards ensuring people's essentials are met, towards Sri Lanka having a better image across the globe. Now we are at 113 the point in corruption. And if some party can bring it to 80, that's radical.
Yeah.
So that's the answer to what you're saying. So when you say pragmatic and radical, we don't think what we have presented is undoable. It's not out of the ordinary because it's who we are, right? But for a party like SJB, having all the people who has ruled historically and who has a lot of baggage in them, and making slight changes is the only way they can go without breaking the entire pot. Right? Because now if you take, I mean, there was a picture of Sajith Premadasa very recently out of tooth relic candy, and left side it was Dala Salahat, right side it was partly Ranath. It was Arjuna Ranatunga, his enemy who Tilanga Samatipal. Then back GLPs, then Nalaka Godheva. Then there was one.
We actually posed this question to Kusum.
No, what I'm trying to say is, so, and also now we have Geeta Kumar Singh as well. What I'm trying to say is, so if they want to put things in place on day one, these people are going to pull their leg. Because they are bringing power now. This is what happened to entire, across all these years, Sri Lankan politicians, even the president has a good intention of, making a change. The power is bought by the local politician. So if local politician is powerful, and if he's bringing money, if he's bringing connections, if he's bringing votes, that person is absolutely... Why Ranil can't move an inch? Now Ranil is safeguarding the person from Badul, Sampath, Chamar. Right? I know a huge corruption deal under Chamar Sampath due to minerals, right? But he's bringing 150,000 votes to Ranil. Yeah. So this is the reason we are saying the current structure of politics can't make the radical change people are looking for.
Yeah.
It always has to be very incremental, whether if it's happened, if it happens, if it doesn't happen, it's okay. So that's why I'm trying to say the way we are built, where our party is built, where we've joined the party, the purpose of the party is quite aligned to what people ask in Daragale.
Right. So, I mean, in terms of, because society came to an utter collapse, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think people were ready for a change,
Yeah.
and people have moved to the left because they're thinking of things like
No, I
social
think
protections
people,
and things like that.
No, I don't think people have moved to the left. People has moved to what's right. Right, in the sense, not that left and right.
No, I know what you mean. But it's correct.
What I'm trying to say is the just, the equity.
Yeah,
right?
I think also people are motivated to...
Whether it's left ideology or right ideology, today world, it's center-left and center-right. There's no big difference. You said no, 88%. There's a agreement with
policy-wise.
Policy-wise. So if you take outside Sri Lanka also, the entire world is grown by the private sector. There's no doubt about it. But how the private sector grows, we have a different view to what SJB and Ranil thinks.
Okay.
Right? But that is where the difference is.
But the base ideology is seen as Marxist socialist, right? Now, in the context of things happening globally, socialism is viewed almost as a bad word. Right?
Well, people have, but
how do you like...
I will always stand up as a socialist or a left politician, because my whole purpose of living is to bring justice and equity to people around me and my society. So that is why I call myself a socialist, right? So we read, we study. There are better ways of managing the economy that makes it fair for people. Right? So that is our ideology. But one can think, no, trickle down works. You'll allow people to make more and more money on their individualistic desires, and the society will automatically become good. But it has not happened in the world. Right? Government has intervened in certain areas where the market fails. Right? So I don't necessarily think that ideologically we have to frame this whether you are a Marxist or a capitalist or a socialist, because now it's about what you are trying to do. So maybe the name is pragmatism, right? What Sri Lanka wants now is to take the growth trajectory of a South Korea or a Vietnam.
Yeah.
We need fast growth, right? So then what are the strategies you would implement? You look at our policies. I would like to ask anyone, what would you see communist or Marxist or socialist that you don't like in that policy? That is what we have to ask now, right? So if there are policies in our book, right? What is the policy that someone is afraid of? What someone is like kind of not in agreement with?
Yeah.
So that is where the discussion should be.
Right. Actually, that's what we're going to get to.
Yeah.
Because this is not about this is not going to be like a deep policy discussion.
I
We
know.
had that before. Like we discussed policy.
I mean, we can read
told us,
Karl Marx, we can read Adam Smith, we can learn out of both.
But what Lulu discovered was that people vote based on like feelings.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like a feeling they have or a narrative that's stuck in their head. And these are the most common ones that we have come out with. So obviously the whole fear around this Marxism, socialism thing.
Yeah, okay. I think the fear is where I'll tell you where fear is coming from. So Marxism and socialism was practiced very early in the days of the world, like after the feudalism, and there was the industrial revolution. The capital was concentrated to one segment of the population, and people rebelled and kind of took over governments, right? Yeah. And at that time, the only experience people see is Russia and China, right? So the two things we have to understand, the economic system and the governance system. We are confusing both now, right? Governance system is like you have one party and you tell what to do. There's no democracy. So that is one part of governance. Economic system is also at that time government owns everything. There's no right for public property, public wealth, and that is a system that was in 1970. Now, would you call China a Marxist? Now, China allows private capital, allows individual entrepreneurship,
but still one-party state.
Yeah, then that is the governance part, right? So these are two things. Economy, how you develop the economy, and how you use governance, right? Yeah. So then if you take New Zealand, right, they have a democratic system, but very much left-oriented. The way they think, way they decide, equity, justice for people is what they are thinking of. So that is where we can't categorically say, okay, this is bad. Of course, what happened in 1917 and all that is bad. People have freedom of choice. That is when it's very liberal. Liberal means we all agree liberal, right? Freedom of choice, freedom of writing, freedom of doing whatever you like within the parameters of the society.
So you're saying you will marry sort of like a free market system?
So market is always free.
Yeah.
It's the government who decides what's free to what extent.
Yeah.
Right? So when you say whether your franchise is free, it's not for sale, right? Right? And you know, sometimes your organs you can sell, but it's not allowed. Right? So likewise, the freedom of the market is defined and decided by the society. Right? Based on that society. So when you say free market, there's no free market in the world. Right? If you take even US, they have certain restrictions on certain goods. Certain restrictions on, so there are freedom for certain goods.
Yeah.
That is based on their strategy. Yeah. There's no absolutely free market.
But those are policy decisions, right? Like, I mean, depending on how you want to improve competition, you have tariffs.
That's right. And even when US and UK grow, they had the highest tariffs in the world, 36% or more. They never allowed anything to come in. Even now today, India, they have signed on a free trade agreements and WTO. There are certain things you can't send to India. There are certain things they have put certifications and blocked. Right? So it's a country who decides what is your strategy, economic strategy, how do you protect your local. So when you say whether it's a free market or not, market is always free, but market is not always efficient.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So that's where you see a government's role.
Yeah, so for example, let's say essential goods and services.
Yeah.
The free market will only apply when there's large number of buyers and large number of sellers. So that is where the equilibrium will happen. Unfortunately, in most of the essential goods and services, there's large number of buyers, but few number of suppliers. So for suppliers, the tendency for the suppliers to become a cartel is so high. Yeah. So at that point, the bargaining power of the individual consumer is not working. So the equilibrium doesn't work.
But that would require less regulation, right? That will require deregulation.
That requires regulation, because now the cartel.
But isn't it regulation that has created the cartel? Now, if you look at the construction industry here, the construction industry here, right?
Yeah.
Like we talked about it before.
Yeah.
It's created like monopolies here, right?
Yeah.
So that is the way the regulatory
I was referring to essential goods, right?
Okay.
So essential goods. So if what the government should either do is to ensure there are more and more players in the marketplace. Then it automatically becomes a better competition, right? So what I'm trying to say is, at any given point, there are market failures. At that market failures, there are different ways government intervenes. One, you can improve the number of suppliers. Either you can organize the consumer. Either you can put a price control, which is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? And then the other one is that the government can also play a pivotal role as a party for improved competition. So these are the three things the world is doing. Yeah. Right? So,
by the way, we are doing all of that here. We are doing all of it.
So that's it. So it's based on the particular product or the problem that we are trying to solve. Yeah. Each of the states around the world has taken various interventions. So there's no this and that. It's like not grey. It's actually grey. It's not like yes or a no. It's a matter. So sometimes if you take most of the developed nations, they intervene up to the point the countries grow. Right. And then they pull down, which is something that is understandable. So certain things, when consumers do have enough money to buy insurance, when consumers or the public has enough money to buy their own public health, the government intervention in health can
reduce.
Okay. Right? So likewise.
So basically, you're saying there's nothing to worry about.
No, I mean that is why we did put it in writing. Is there anything that people can worry about, right? So there is no need to go back to 1917.
Yeah.
The only way that we can go forward is that we are referring countries like South Korea, and in terms of India, and even developed economies like Europe. Why SJB keeps on referring Europe? You can't do that. because you are not grown, you don't have the capital. Your society is not there yet, right? So that is why we have to look at countries which are very volatile and small and as an economy underdeveloped. How did they grow? Now that is the economic model we have presented.
Yeah.
Whereas we don't believe that, you just do licensing, security, police, health, education, and the economy will automatically come up. No, the government has to play that directional role where the private sector can thrive, and which has not happened in Sri Lanka.
Okay, so let's change tracks, because otherwise we're going to get into like an economic discussion, right? We're trying to deal with some narratives.
So I just want to first clear out, when you say Marxist Leninist, what the action certain countries did.
Yeah.
People can have fear.
Yeah.
Right?
In fact, we had this conversation before. We had the conversation.
So now what we are saying is, please look at our
Yeah.
policy, what we have presented, which is in 100% agreement of everybody in our party, which includes JVP, includes people like us.
Right.
So that you don't have to worry anything beyond that policy document, we are not going to do.
Right. Okay. So that you mentioned the JVP. I mean, that is the major sort of narrative against the NPP is that the JVP is the real power. That it's sort of like the wolf in sheep's clothing. Like NPP is the and also the fact that JVP was responsible for a lot of like violence in the past and various insurrections and all of that. That is being constantly used
as a narrative,
as a means of attack.
But Chathuranga, the fact that JVP is the real power behind the NPP, that is correct, right?
It's true, that's the biggest party. So I'll tell you why we should not be scared, why I am not scared of, right? I also have wealth, and right. So what JVP is a party who believes in change from Marxist theory itself. Their theory says things change, so therefore we need to change. And if you take from their 1971 manifesto to 1994 policies to 2001 to 2015 as JVP, there's a huge transition from where they were to where they wanted to become.
Yeah.
And 2015 to 2019, there's a significant transition as NPP. Right? And now 2024 is more detailed version. Right? So it's a JVP who decided that they need to change. It's not NP. There's no entity like NPP went and plugged with JVP. JVP decided, look, the real, based on the narratives, the history and all that, we are not going to get power in this country. Because there are two big boys who keep, using racism and religion, and they are attacking. They will never allow a third party to come to power. How good you have been? From 1994, they have been absolutely good for democracy. Brought in the 17th Amendment, fought for 19th Amendment, was against 18th Amendment, fought for unjust, fought for robbings and all those malpractices, right? So they've been all good, but they never get votes. That's a big problem.
So don't you think you have to address the fact that past violence still within like people?
I think it is not the past violence. I can give you a very simple example. When they had a coalition with SLPP, when they asked to contest, they got 40 seats. Every one of the JVP members are topping every district. So this particular narrative is a created, fabricated one in a very small segment of the society.
Okay, so you don't think you don't think people in general?
No, that is not the reason. The reason was, I'll tell you the three reasons. Reasons was, which is we have answered. One is people were afraid of what they are going to do. It's still there. So they had to come up with a document or a policy. This is not going to change like as a dramatic word, right? But these are what they are going to do. So that is why they started building policy from 2015 with professionals. And second, people could not imagine what is their government would look like. Now if you take SJB, we know now Dayasiri Jayasekara is going to be a minister.
Is he?
Obviously, what I'm saying is, why would you support? Yeah. And we can imagine Nalaka Godahiva is going to be in the minister. I'm just saying imagine, you can imagine. But JVP at 2015, nobody had that kind of a
disagrees, but
view, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just giving
No, I
visuals so
we
people
get
can
it,
visualize, right? Whether it happened or not, I don't know. But now they were able to attract people like us, Harini, Harshana, and all that. Now there's a kind of a view that they have a team that, you know, that who can play this role.
Yeah.
And thirdly is about, I think that was the policy. The second one was that. Okay. Then third one was, if you don't consider yourself large, big, nobody's going to vote for you. No third. I mean, this time you will see only two parties will be on the top. It will polarize by tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. So those are the three reasons why they couldn't take power.
Yeah.
So that is where they decided. Now look, we have this problem. How do we solve this? So then we need to create a bigger platform, where all the good people who think like us, who want to make a change, who want to bring law and order to this country, can come and do politics. Anybody who's listening here, all of you are here around here, you're always welcome to be part of our network, right? So that is how it was built over a period of time to ensure that we answer these fears. So what I'm trying to say, yes, there are people who are asking these questions which we have not reached. It's our problem. Or they have not reached. They have not been, right? So people who has reached us is a super majority now who has trusted us and trying to vote on 21st of
Right.
all these problems would have been there with them.
Yeah.
But after no sooner they associate with us, they started seeing how we live, how Hadunethi lives, how Anura lives, how Lal lives. When you have a drink, when you have a dinner, when you go out with these people, you would, see these there's nothing to fear of, right?
So you're saying people can identify with
I mean, we
this
are
group.
open, right? Not like other parties. We have been very absolutely transparent. We come to any talk show to talk, and you can ask any question, and you can associate our lives, because most of us has come through the hard route. Right? Most of us has come through Shishatve to a better school and gone to university, trying to find our own way through this system. So I think there's a lot of traits that people can trust us. No sooner they start associating.
Okay.
But I know there's a large amount of people, especially in Colombo and Kandy or Gaul, they have not associated.
Right. So they probably can't identify with
It will change over the period of time. I mean, what happened from 2015 to now is good enough to win. Right? But going forward, everybody's going to love us.
Okay, all right. So the other major thing about the NPP is that there's no real governing experience. So at a time like this, why kind of touch something that's already on some sort of a track? We'll get to the administration narratives later on.
Yeah.
But the theory is that, especially on the economy, that you don't have a mature team, that your policies are not mature enough to be able to handle and take an economy like this forward at a time like this.
Yeah, I think we have to first figure out two types of narratives coming through. One is considered economies from our opponents. Obviously, they are not going to say good about us, right?
This is coming from the people.
Yeah, so when you say people, who's influencing people? Second is that most of the world today runs on neoliberalism. So they obviously don't like our policies, right? So when someone gets a narrative from someone, it instills in you that this policy is not good enough, right? So with that notion, I can't answer a lot, because we believe the policy that we have put forward is good enough to take Sri Lanka from here to next, right? And then when it comes to the current trajectory, we know that it's going to be another IMF cycle, which has happened 16 times. We are not going to grow. We are going to kill our industries, which is already dying. We're going to make people poorer and poorer, so we have to put an end to it. So therefore, our policy is based on the currently what's not happening and what should change from this month onwards, to while ensuring that the economy is in stability, because we are already in IMF program, At the same time, how do you find sweet levers that can grow the economy and also stabilize the lives of the people?
Yeah.
So those are the only two differences between what Ranil is going to continue and what we are going to do.
So I think with the NPP, now I was at the debate at the one organized by the Chamber of Commerce. I think there's no question that NPP's rhetoric is excellent, right? Even Dr. Harshana. At that debate, his rhetoric was good, but when it came to substance on certain questions, he lost the room.
Okay.
Right? He lost. I messaged right after, and I mentioned. So that is where the fear comes from. Like, does the team have the experience to take the economy forward from the point where it is right now?
So I think in terms of communication and how you articulate, and I mean, we are not seasoned politicians to face debates and all that. I agree, right? But in terms of how we want to fix it, we do have consulted enough people. And we not only Sri Lanka but overseas also. But the reality is how many people would like to come into politics. So that is a real thing, right? So there are politicians you see today who has personal interest over people's interest, but they can consider themselves as politicians. But for us to get a professional person to come and sit, be the face of NPP, it's tough. So people whom we have is good enough to drive the administration, understand the subject and implement, execute.
Yeah.
But in terms of knowledge and how it needs to happen, there are two parties that's going to help us. One is the experts we have been consulting, which is behind the scene. And the other is the administration itself. Our central bank is quite capable of doing a lot of things. You don't have to have a politician to tell the central bank what needs to happen.
Yeah.
So that is
in fact, that was one of the questions that Dr. Harshana tripped up on.
No, I think
on central bank independence.
Yeah,
right?
I think
he couldn't give a clear answer.
No, I think I can give a clear answer. So the how where it's coming from. Now the current Central Bank Act and even the amendment we did.
You support it?
We didn't. We didn't support it.
Yeah.
Right. 2002 change. Okay. Originally, when central bank was created, there were 4 goals: 2 goals for growth, 2 goals for stability. In 2002, 2 goals for growth was removed. Stability was kept. You remember there was a 5% fiscal deficit. No, nobody adhered to it, right? And now even in the new one, it clearly says the central bank's core objective is to stabilize the monetary policy. Now this is a clear neoliberal IMF narrative, right? There are enough examples. This is not going to work for developing nations. That is the reservation we have. It's not about appointing the governor. It's not about government influencing central bank to make cash.
Yeah.
It's about the collective responsibility of the central bank, that is a monetary policy, and the fiscal policy. How do we coexist? That is the concern we have. So when someone directly asks me whether I would repeal that, no, I can't repeal that. I should not repeal that. And that act has so many good things about governance.
Yeah.
Right? But if someone asks me whether I would amend it, I would think.
Yeah.
Right? I would think we have to decide. We talk to IMF and say, look, we would like this to change in a different way. But that is not something that we can tell now.
Yeah, but that's where the fear comes from. That the conventional wisdom is that we need the IMF program to come out of the economic crisis. Essentially, what that does is give us access to capital markets and so on. So it's
I think
access to borrowing. So if I can finish, the fact that NPP is saying we have to renegotiate the DS. We had to do our own debt sustainability analysis. We had to renegotiate the terms. It puts a certain amount of fear. That you might do something that might unravel.
No, I think Anur explained it on the last program very clearly. It's the will and the intention of us to renegotiate. But if it's becoming so tough, we would go within the current agreement for the next 4 years. That's our stance, right? But if you are not trying it, because we know it's not working, why we never had a program for Sri Lanka when we went to IMF. The DSA is currently built on the standard developing nations model. Right? Now, I'll tell you some examples. Now, the GDP growth that's been predicted till 2019 is 3.1%.
It's too low.
Too low. And we think there is a better potential for Sri Lanka. And
in fact, SJB has said the same thing.
Right. So that is one. Yeah. They have only planned for 7 billion worth of FDIs. We think we have so much potential if we can clean the house. Right? And then the IMF program has only predicted 16 billion worth of goods exports. Currently we are at 12.
Yeah, so that's NPP you can exceed that.
Yeah, NPP thinks that we can exceed that. IMF has put only 8 billion for service exports and still 6 billion for remittances. Right? See, these are obviously lower numbers. Right? That has been planned
by
in
the current administration.
So that is why we say we need our own plan, so it helps us every 6 months to negotiate. When you say negotiate, now even this third review, they down the inflation. Yeah. They adjusted the GDP. They adjusted certain parameters which was assumed last year. So there's obviously a room for a discussion.
So I think the assurance people will look for is that you're not going to do something like too radical that's going to unravel.
No.
What's already been done.
Okay. I'm going to make it very clear. This is from our
right.
No, it's like this. It's like, don't think IMF is a savior. That's
no, we have to save ourselves.
Right, we have to save ourselves. So IMF is a temporary support when country is in crisis. India has taken this support. Vietnam has taken this support. South Korea has taken this support. Yeah. But what's different is all these 3 countries had their own agenda of how to grow. Right? And what we are saying is the same thing. Saying, look, we went to the agreement. When we come into power, there's an agreement on the table. We can't deny it. And we don't want to get out of the agreement as well. That is our stance. But however, if there's any room for us to negotiate better terms for our industry, better terms for our people, we would do that. We would just not go as Ranil, saying, that it's very hilarious. No, for the last 3 months, he said, I have to ask IMF to do anything. But just before the election, he's changing all the fiscal policies. Right? So this is a narrative. I'll tell you one
he said it couldn't be changed.
Right? I met a lot of industrialists, right? So when they went with their pain points to the ministry clearly has told them, we can't do anything, you talk with the Ministry of Finance. So every time they go to the Ministry of Finance, they say, look, we'll get you an opportunity to talk to IMF. I mean, that's the entire narrative from SME sector associations to, I recently met the gem and jewelry guys, right? So the industry is falling. Why? Because now we have imposed a VAT on local manufactured jewelry. Yeah. Now they are moving to Madagascar and Africa to do their product. Right? Now the industry is falling. Now the reality is just by adding a 18% VAT on that, the treasury is not getting a 0 cent because the product is not anyway going to get done here now. Right? Now, isn't this something that head of state should go and talk to IMF and negotiate? Look, this is not productive. This is counterproductive. Here's what we're going to do. Here we are going to give this concession to the industry, and the industry is going to grow this much. That will give us some income tax. That will give us some EPF and ETF. That will give us some money so people will start consuming. So here, this is the negotiation. So this is exactly what we want to do. We don't want to derail the IMF program. And we have discussed this with India, we have discussed with all this. We don't want to get out of the IMF program just because while we take power on 21st, we are as a sovereign state, we have signed.
We are already in the program.
Right?
That's
it, right? So I think our narratives of whether we like IMF or not, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But we are happy to work with them, and they have openly said so. Very recently, they said that it's very interesting statement. We would like to work with the new government. So they also know that there's a government
is going to change.
Right?
I'll come. I have a bunch of questions what the current administration is putting forward that link to this.
Yeah.
But Another sort of issue that comes under scrutiny is education policy, about private education and so on. And linked to that is the view that somehow the NPP JVP is linked to trade unions, student unions, and is responsible for strikes and jamming up government through the things, right? I think in one of the messages, you want to read that about, you have that? It's just that these are the sentiments that are embedded in people's minds, right? So
we have
how would you kind of, how would you address that?
So firstly, about the unions, right? Trade unions and student unions, right? So trade unions, there are two types of trade unions in Sri Lanka. One is trade unions related to government service and government SOEs. So these are politicized, right? And only this year will be, it's more JVP. All this time the unions were either SLPP or UNP. You understand? Because
but the perception is not that.
No, perception is not, because our guys are very vocal and they take the baton and they charge it out. So our unions have played a pivotal role in certain strikes and all these things. So why do people strike?
But it's perceived as an impediment to progress.
No,
right?
like for
that
example, is perceived, that is perception.
But we have overstuffed institutions.
So overstuffed by whom? I mean, we had this chat last time also,
we did,
right? So you have filled the entire organization with political appointees, and when you want to make a change, they have the political power to say no, right? So somebody has to fix this now. And unions, now, the perception that unions are bad is something we have to get out of our head.
No, that's true.
Because entire Europe runs on unions, right? I think US also has enough.
No, what's bad is the politicization
of unions, right?
So unions are there for collective good, right?
Yeah, so the collective bargaining and all those things. So what we are saying is the NPP's unions or the NPP's unions are politically aligned. So if you are doing good, we are pretty sure they are going to 100% back us because they trust the leadership. Because when the leaders are not corrupt, leaders are putting a new policy which is beneficial to people, and every time the union strikes, there has been few reasons. One is to get additional benefits to them. Other one is they are not happy with the strategy that's been proposed because either it's counterproductive to public or counterproductive to the organization. So when that is cleared, we believe that there will be more agreement and alignment with unions so that you can improve the railway, you can improve the banks, you can improve the sector, because the political will is there to make things better. And the politician and his director board is not corrupt. So it's a better chance. I'm not saying it's easy, it's a better chance. Now student unions, if you take student unions, are again politicized, and political parties have been influencing a lot. And most of the student struggles has been on benefits and in terms of free education, right? So every time there's a bill that counters free education, like the recent bill that was brought in by the Ranil Wickramasinghe, which is without zero consultation of anybody in the education industry. So people will oppose that. And when they don't have enough benefits, when enough resources are not given to the state education, they will do that. So when things are put in place, I don't think there will be much problem with the student unions as well going forward, because NPP is for state education and we will resource it as much as we can.
What is the policy on private education?
So private education, so what we are saying is private education can remain under a regulation. Currently we don't have a regulation.
Including medical schools?
Yes, currently also there's a possibility now. Now I also opposed SITEM because it was illegal. SITEM did not took the legal route that they're supposed to take. Right? One thing is that they were initially registered as a business school, then converted into a medical school. And then in our law it says the medical college should have the approval of the medical council. So they never had the approval of the medical council, but they started recruiting children. So that is why we oppose it. But if anybody comes to the right route, have the right amount of facilities, bring the right faculty, and get the support of not the medical council, government is okay. So there's a regulatory framework for medical.
Yeah.
But others, it's not regulated enough in terms of the quality, in terms of the certificate, the program accreditation and acceptance around the world, the amount of the money that they charge, whether it's worthwhile or not, is a question today. So therefore, we would bring a regulatory framework under the UGC to govern the current education. It's not only the higher education, but we have problems with private schools as well. There are so many international schools that are not up to the right standard. So that is where we are. Even for private medical institutions like hospitals and all that, we are not against them, but they can still remain under regulation.
Okay. So there's a lot of questions because of time constraints, right? Because anyway we had to wrap up before midnight, right? So we'll kind of skip a few. Another theme that we saw.
Saying midnight.
No, it's not midnight. It's not going to be midnight. We're not going to go to midnight. One of the questions is about minorities, right? I think there were some comments about that.
So it was basically, as a minority person, I wouldn't feel comfortable voting for the NPP. And then there was something about what he said about people in the south and people in the north. And
he's preaching Jaffna.
There was like a veiled threat. People were saying it was a veiled threat
to the people in the north. The narrative of Ranil Wickremesinghe. So I think...
what would be the argument for
the
NPP
the first thing is, anybody who's looking at us, look at us. We have been the party who has not been racist for the last good years, right? When everybody is attacking Muslims, we were the party who spoke on behalf of them. When people were using racism and religion, and JVP was the party who kind of said that we can't have this racism at any cost, right? So the history of the party, and if you take Anura Dissanayake himself, has been a non-racist politician so far, right?
But the views on 13th Amendment has been...
So 13th Amendment and racism is different thing, right? The minority problem and the 13th Amendment is a different problem. So we can discuss a little detail on that. We don't believe 13th Amendment is the solution for the current problem we are having, right? But at this point, since there is a 13th Amendment, we will abide by it.
That's the law of the land.
So because law of the land.
Yeah. But are you committed to the full implementation?
No. What is there will remain until the new constitution is done. That's why we have put in the policy, the discussions which had between 2015 and 19 need to be fast-tracked to bring a solution which has more power, devolution of power into urban councils at the village level. How do you get things done, right? And that has to be fixed in the proposed new constitution. Until such, the provincial council will remain. Why we don't think that is the only problem? The problem currently, how we see is, there is no economic democracy in this country.
Right.
There is no opportunity for the people in the north and the east, and it has not developed. And their basic needs have not been fulfilled. I went to Jaffna 4 weeks ago. I met the Chamber of Commerce. And they gave a letter that they have given to 3 presidents. Right? I thought this is like very scary stuff. I just took it. And number 1, you guys have burned down our library. They remember it so well. But we have been asking for a facility to trade. That means a building, a complex to do trade in Jaffna. Not has happened yet. We have asked for a fishing dock for multi-day fishing boats. We give 40% of the fish to the country. We still don't have that investment. We have 7 islands which can be used for tourism, but we don't have transportation in between them. We produce a lot of goods, agriculture goods.
Yeah.
We don't have any processing units in the north. We send every good to south to get processed. Our economy is shifting to that side. We have Thal and all that. We don't have a distillery, but some of your politicians have 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Right? And they said early we had Tamil-speaking government servants, lot of them, but they fled due to, especially Ranil Wickremesinghe and their team in 1983. Now we don't have the ability to communicate with the state
in
the language they prefer. These were like very basic stuff, and there was nothing about the 13th Amendment or the provincial council. It was entirely corruption and ignorance. Right? So what I'm trying to say is that is where NPP also sees a solution. So if we can bring investments down there, we are opening up few bonds for North and the East as well, so the diaspora can directly invest. Right? And that freedom, economic freedom, if we give, these governance issues become secondary. But it doesn't mean that we need to ensure that there is power for the people, not only in the north, but even in the south.
Yeah.
There need to be a lot of engagement of the citizens in making decisions even in the urban council as well. So that is where we land. So as a party, don't pick a few words and decide on us. Look at our history, look at the people who we represent. And Sumandiram also gave a good statement that he never thinks Anur as a racist person.
Yeah.
He did say that. He did say that.
He caused a bit of a ruckus for that.
So what I'm trying to say is, please read us, read our history, read our ways of behavior and how openly we are.
There's another sort of question about the connection to Tiranalas. Why the NPP never criticizes him, or they didn't come out strongly against like the visa scam and
so
things like that.
Few things, right? Based on the individual names and all that, right? So the known issues we have been very highlighting because we have the file, right? But the things that came up very recently is something that is questionable, and few people have gone and questioned it on the court, right? It's something that we didn't do FR because our lawyers team felt that filing FR is not something that is the right thing, but we need to go offense which is violating the procurement procedure, right? And by that time few people has gone on FR. So FR generally gives there is fundamental right violation. So if that was not, if it went against the petitioner, everything would have been cool. So our team decided not to go ahead with it. So that is why it didn't pick from NPP side, but it was done by Slito and I think SJB, some lawyers did that. Yeah. So there is nothing to do with whether it's Tiranalas or not. We actually bark on names where we have a file.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. We talked about the files before. The fact that these files have been given, they've not gone forward, that it's all just a big show and all of that. How would you address that?
So basically, that's what but that's the truth. So we have given 145 files. Now we have Ravi and Shani also with us. 106 files have been investigated. Nothing has happened from there onwards. And then 11 files have gone into Attorney General, from Attorney General to court. And all those 11 files are now dismissed. We've got dismissed by Gotabaya himself because he became the president. And then some because the filing had errors. So what we are saying is, unless there's a political will to continue, nothing will happen to these files.
Right. So you're ensuring some sort of accountability for.
So number one, from 21st onwards, the 11 files which were mistakenly filed will get filed number one.
And mistakenly filed.
Because
so with technical errors, no?
Technical errors.
Even transparency said they can be refiled.
Tell the judge, we made a mistake. We are going to pull it back.
But they have to be refiled.
You have to be refiled. They haven't done it. So then the 106, there is 106 which we can proceed on. And there's another 300 odd files which is with our party.
So will we see accountability?
Of course.
For things like Easter bombings and various other things.
That is a big one.
Various scams that
we
have
been
highlighting.
One. So Anura explains it very well where the Easter bombing stopped. Right? So there were a few incidents which was not investigated further. Right? about the lady that got killed, and then there was a phone call between two people, why that was not probed, and the third one was a third bomb which did not blow, right? So there is a lot of questions around it. The investigation is solved. So the bond scam also same, right? And then the other files are very much clear. These are two big issues Sri Lanka faced, but apart from that, others are files due to corruption. And those will be probed. That is why people are scared to give power to us.
Okay. So one of the contentions is that AKD is sort of like another Gota in the making, right? Like rhetoric and the campaign and various other things. That the country will go down the same road, and if power is given to the FDP.
So I think people would say that does not know what Gota is. Gota was no one. Gota was created by a marketing strategy, right? And every time everyone who voted Gota knew Johnston Fernando is coming to the power. Everybody who voted Gota knew Prasanna Ranatunga is going to be a minister. But for Anura, that is not something like that. Anura is a person who worked really hard from his school days with a great vision for 30 years to make a difference in this country. And since it's the last day, I can reveal how we made this. Right? So what I'm trying to say is, we had a game plan, right?
Yeah.
We looked at how elections are won, who are the influencing parties, right? Now, if you take the expatriate community, we tackled it from day one. We knew that parties
that Gota did the same thing.
I was going to say,
all those people flying into Sri Lanka, you've seen the same phenomenon.
Similarities they see, but for the different purposes. That is to bring Gota as a president and Mahinda to give power to Basil and Mahinda. Now here we are building a citizens organization to the root and allowing citizens to be part of this with the great intention that was there for Anura and the team to make this right. So that is the difference. But if you take how we designed the campaign, we've used the ways that how the power is taken in this country. We have influenced the right parties, not influenced, we have convinced those people. And I don't think anybody has organized the way that we have. That is why we have the power now. It's not that it didn't happen like, by a marketing campaign or a campaign that ran on racism. I mean, they planned it in 2015. They created one side the Islamic the extremes,
and
the other side the
Buddhist.
So they brought it up and created Vandakottu and all those things and blew it up.
Plus the national security crisis.
Exactly. So they created a crisis. We are actually probably, there was a crisis and that impacted people. So we are now giving a solution. And there is no reason to think what Gota did and why Anura is similar. Right? Then what is the alternative? If there's alternative, yes. Right? What we have done is we have grabbed the situation, we have managed it, we have designed it, we have planned for it. Now we are in power, right? So I don't think people should worry about it because there is no similarity between Gota's political culture, Gota and the Mahinda's political culture and NPP politics.
Right. So, and the commitment to the abolition of the executive presidency?
Yes.
Are we going to do it within a timeline?
So, for example, for most of the changes, we are saying we are bringing a new constitution. Sri Lanka can't go with this, right? 21 amendments, and it's not going to work.
I think most are in agreement.
So I think what we are saying is constitution needs certain changes, and that constitution will have to come before the next election.
Right.
So there won't be Anura Disanayake running for second term. And we ask people, even after 21st, there must be doubts. You must be supporting NPP, SJP. But all of us has to get together to fix this country. So when you want to bring a good, constitution, we would invite all of you to be part of it. right? And it will go for a 2/3. And obviously, if we don't have 2/3, others have to support, right? And then with that, we will go for a referendum.
Yeah.
So that is a process in Sri Lankan constitution.
Sure.
So we will follow that. But the reality is we need social power to pressurize our opposition to support the good thing.
Yeah.
Right? So if we bring all the good things...
But if you get a mandate, because this has been part of the manifesto,
yeah, mandate...
that will give you the moral authority.
No, the thing is this,
right?
in Sri Lanka, to change the constitution, you need a 2/3 mandate.
Yes.
I mean, that's probably yes, probably no. Right? So I think it will be more democratic, where all parties agree and the society also agrees, and we sign off on a particular amendment, not amendment, as entire transformation.
So you're saying it will depend on the composition of the next parliament?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm trying to say is if people can keep, I mean, that's why I'm inviting everyone to help, so that you can pressurize your own party to support a particular good initiative, and they are, I mean, obviously...
I think anybody will support this, right? I think all parties will agree to this.
Build it together, might have a better chance.
Only the current president has said he won't abolish. I don't know what the SLPP stance on it is.
I think SLFP is not. SLPP is not. They think executive presidency can save Sri Lanka. I think SJB and us are more in line
with this. So maybe if there's a 2/3 between you all, it can get done. So it's been a long day, and I know it's been a long campaign for you as well. And so let me put this to you. I mean, as a final question, the overarching narrative is that we have some form of stability, whether you believe that or not. Right? I mean, that discounts the suffering of a lot of people.
Yeah.
To achieve that stability that we have, that we can't sacrifice. Sort of, do we have to sacrifice?
Okay.
Governance has to be second. Ranil himself has said, governance is not my priority. He has said that. There's a headline, right? He says economy first. Do you believe that we have to sacrifice governance for stability?
The root cause of this problem is governance.
Right.
For us, the priority is governance. It's going to happen from 21st of September, the governance. And putting the economy right on track, I can guarantee we fought so hard without media, without power, without money. Citizens build this organization. We fought so hard to get this far. And if anybody thinks we are going to give it up so easily, and I think they are in the wrong. Because we are not going to give it up so easily. We are not going to let this fall. We'll ensure that we continue as it is and in a better way. But ensure that the governance is in place. Systems
within the democratic system.
Of course.
Right.
I mean, obviously that's the entire process. Is to go in the democracy, strengthen democracy and allow people's freedom. And I think the fear, I find it very difficult because people have fear on NPP whilst people knowing that the people who are ruling today are the ones who violated human rights, are the ones who are not implementing law. And there is no necessity for one to think.
So you're saying it's a hypothetical fear?
It's a hypothetical fear. Because I'm trying to say if you put things on the table, the people who have done it are the ones who are asking for power. Right? And one last point. I think I will remind this and go to the audience. All these things you are saying, good governance, DSA, debt crisis, all we knew this all these years. And who took all these decisions in 2015? We had current president as very strong prime minister with the 19th amendment. We had deputy Sajid Premadasa in the cabinet, second in command. Then we had Iran, Kabir, Patali, Kirialla, all these people in the cabinet. And why would a person think that the same team can fix our taxes? The same team can fix our finances? The same team can fix our issues with education and health? I think we are denying the truth. We have an unnecessary fear over NPP. We have unnecessary because people who has ruled has not done this. And you are asking the new team, why would you not do it?
Yeah, well, the argument is better the devil you know. That's actually the argument for Ranil as well. You know, better the devil you know.
That's our entire narrative. If you want to change, you have to change the ingredients. If your output has to change, you have to change the ingredients.
Yes, but I mean, similarly, JVP has been part of successive governments as well, including AKD has been.
So they've tried to
do.
Just to clarify, because maybe looks like some of the people has not read the entire history of our politics.
Yeah.
Every time JVP went into a coalition in any form,
they've come out of it.
They have signed a paper on public. So every time the ruling party, you are a minority, and the ruling party derailed from the the original agreement, they have stepped up. They say, we don't want ministries, we don't give a shit about it. We'll just move on. So likewise, every time, I mean, they signed up for two governments. Chandrika's government, they signed up and they got the 17th Amendment done.
Yeah, but they left the government due to differences about aid to the north and east. Right?
That is on the Tsunami
Mandal.
So obviously P-Tom and the Tsunami Mandal is not something that the entire country agreed, right? So there was a ideological difference between that, and they moved up.
Yeah.
So that is the
that's
integrity
the
and the
prerogative of the party. I mean, people have.
So what I'm trying to say is whether they were part of this growth trajectory, the economic policy and ISBs and tax collections. Obviously, I don't think it's fair to tell JVP was part of those decisions.
Okay, all right. Okay. So look, I mean, at the end of the day, people have a historic opportunity to take the country in a totally different direction, right? I mean, the incumbent political system and culture is fighting very hard to make sure that there is no change.
Yeah.
So whichever way it goes, whether it goes towards the NPP or SJB, it's still a departure from this. I mean, I see how you sort of link the old with the SJB and all of that.
No, I mean that's my narrative, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, people who are listening to these conversations would have had a different version of it.
Yeah.
So one thing is for clear: Sri Lanka is going to change.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And
I think
a strong opposition, strong party, strong team to back these things, obviously going to put pressure on whoever governs.
Right.
And you guys have been vocal, you have been doing for 300 days.
Yeah.
Please continue this, whoever is in power.
Right. That is the point. So because we have seen the manifestos, we have seen the ideas.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
this
I
is
think
a battle of
it's
ideas,
like this, right? So people either take that dramatical change this time,
radical.
or they have radical change, or they have to take it in the next 5 years. I can guarantee it today.
Right. Okay.
It's up to whether you wait and see for 5 years and figure yourself, or you make that change now and go for gold.
Right. So, I mean, if I were to summarize, I think the NPP does represent a more radical approach to change, right? I think.
So radical.
I think no. I think it's a
compared to the status quo.
It's not radical is not a dirty word, right? I mean, it's
saying
like
obviously
what you guys
transformation
propose
of the system, yes,
right? And
the system change, you can say,
right? Exactly, and which is what people fought for as well. I think
that's why people are willing to vote for us. And if you go down,
with the
people don't look at anything else. They say put people behind bars.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I think both the opposition has presented fairly clear visions, right? And I think with the teams and all of that,
policy to read now.
Right, exactly. And ultimately it'll depend on where the people are, whether they're viewing it from the left, whether they're viewing it from the right, in the middle. And I think there's a class element to it as well, societal element to it as well. Yeah. So it'll all play out. I mean.
More you know, more it becomes better, right? So I mean, your previous program made a lot of connections to us. Because so many people,
and a lot of people shared it.
Looking at that,
no, because the whole idea was
more than 1,000 people, I would say.
Yeah, no, because the whole idea is that we connect
because they have never listened to
in English. In English, right? No, really, that's true.
Absolutely.
So I think that makes a difference. I mean, let's see how the people kind of...
Maybe there will be more calls tomorrow.
let's see how we do it.
After 12 chaotic.
But I'll tell you, I mean, the one thing, I mean, you know, Leisha has a couple of quotes as, you know, to end the discussion.
Yeah.
Act as if the whole election depended on your single vote. I mean, we have been telling people, don't spoil your vote, use it. You know, I mean, understand how to vote correctly.
And this election especially.
Right. Yeah, I think it's an important election. I think it's an acid test for the people of this country. Right after the Aragale, whether people are ready for change. I think we know where the urban sort of people are in terms of like wanting some safety and some comfort and all of that, but that's at the expense of a lot of other people. So a well-informed citizenry is the best defense against tyranny, according to Thomas Jefferson. That's Leisha's second quote. So shall we end with that? Is there a final thought you want to leave?
It's not I mean, obviously we are going to continue these discussions, but in terms of this election, there's a chance for people to make a significant change in how we have been ruled thus far.
Yeah.
So the current parliament is not our representatives, not citizens' representatives. Either they are representatives of their family, or either they are representing their own illicit businesses. These are the only two types of people who are there, right? Or the majority. So here's a chance for people to allow this system, break this system.
Yeah.
And if you vote NPP, that is to change.
Right.
And we will uphold that trust. And we will keep talking to you guys and ensure that the gap between the politician and the citizen will be reduced as much as possible. That is the guarantee we can give, and we have to build it together. There's no way that a political party can build a country. But if you work together in the next few years, Sri Lanka will be in a much better place then.
Right. Okay. Well, no matter who comes in, you know, our goals have always been like good governance, law and order, justice, accountability, transparency, and ultimately system change.
You have a probability theory.
Right. Exactly. Well, you know, although we have decided to scale things back a little bit, allow the new government time to kind of enact the agenda, we will still be there to hold people accountable. I mean, you know, I think people have realized that they have power. And I think holding people accountable is the duty of the citizen. Right? Well, let's see. Maybe we wouldn't need to, but you know, if that is what we need to do, because whatever decisions that
in any government there will be lapses, and citizens have to raise it up.
Hold them accountable. Absolutely. So with that, let's wrap up. It's been a long day, long discussions. You know. Wish you guys all the best. I'm
going to sleep for 3 days now.
Right. as we wished Kusum as well. You know, wish you guys all the best as well tomorrow. And are we there on Sunday again, next Sunday? Or when are we back on the street? I think once we let things play out, and then we'll take a call. Right. So I think that's a wrap from GGY, roundtable discussion. Long chat. Lulu, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Thank you. Chathuranga, thank you. Aubrey, Chris, and the team, Anu and CK. Thanks for the amazing work that you guys do. And with that, we wish for a peaceful election and a peaceful transition of power. And with that, good night. Thank you.